The Epic of Gilgamesh Part 1. In the ancient land of Mesopotamia, amid the winding streets and towering ziggurats of Uruk, there ruled a king whose name echoed through the ages, Gilgamesh. His strength was said to rival that of the very gods, his stature casting a shadow over the city as a symbol of his indomitable power. But beneath the splendor of his reign lay a city burdened by oppression, its people crying out for liberation. Hearing the cries of the downtrodden, the gods themselves stirred. Aruru took to her hands the clay of the earth, shaping from it a being unlike any other. Beside her stood Anu, the god of the sky, his gaze overseeing the divine work unfolding below. Enkidu, untamed and wild, knew nothing of the civilized world as he wandered the wilderness. It was during this time that he crossed paths with Shamhat, a priestess of the temple. Through her guidance and the warmth of her presence, Enkidu found himself introduced to the customs and ways of humanity. With a heart transformed and his fury tempered by newfound understanding, Enkidu pledged to challenge the tyrannical rule of the king who instilled fear in the hearts of his subjects. Their meeting was like the clash of titans, a battle that reverberated through the very foundations of Uruk. But amidst the chaos of combat, something unexpected occurred. Gilgamesh and Enkidu, once enemies, found a strange kinship blossoming between them. United by bonds forged in the crucible of conflict, they embarked on a journey that would take them to the farthest reaches of the known world.
The most powerful demigod of all time, Hercules, the son of Zeus and Alcmen, was renowned in Greek mythology for his extraordinary strength and courage. He completed the 12 labors. In one, Hercules defeated the Nemean lion, whose hide was impenetrable, using only his bare hands. He also captured the Erymanthian boar and cleansed the Augean stables in a single day, a task believed to be impossible. Another remarkable feat was obtaining the golden apples of the Hesperides, guarded by a 100-headed dragon. However, Hercules' most impressive feat was not of strength. Hercules and Atlas's story will be told in the next video.
How strong was Samson? According to the biblical account, Samson's strength was legendary. It was said that he possessed supernatural physical power. One of the most well-known stories showcasing Samson's strength is his encounter with a lion. As Samson was traveling, a lion attacked him, but he tore the lion apart with his bare hands, displaying his incredible power. Another instance of Samson's strength was demonstrated when he single-handedly defeated an entire army of Philistines. Armed with only the jawbone of a donkey, Samson slew 1,000 soldiers, displaying his unmatched physical strength and prowess. Samson's strength was both a physical and symbolic representation of God's power working through him. It served as a reminder of the supernatural strength that could be imparted to those chosen by God for a specific purpose. However, it's important to note that Samson's story also highlights his weaknesses and flaws, demonstrating that even great strength can be compromised by personal choices and lack of obedience to God. Samson's strength was exceptional and marked him as one of the most powerful figures in biblical history, showcasing the extraordinary works that can be accomplished through God's chosen instruments. This is the end of this episode.
Man separated Earth continents, lifted 200 quintillion tons, basically 3% of the Earth, with one hand, destroyed a moon with a punch, accidentally destroyed a solar system with a sneeze, dragged the galaxy to a new location, lifted Book of Eternity with infinite weight, moved the sun closer to Earth, contained the power of a black hole in the palms of his hands, bursted through infinity.
Biblical Agnostic here, back with another video. Today's video, the topic is, why do you believe in Samson and not Hercules? And we can also extend that to Gilgamesh. So let's get into the topic. You know, as a little boy, I was taught to believe in myths and legends being true, specifically the biblical ones, but to disregard all other myths and legends. Myths and legends that came from other cultures like Egyptian culture or Greek culture. Osiris, not to believe that. Hercules, don't believe that. Any other myths, those myths are not true. They're false. They're just stories. Mythology, whole courses dedicated to Greek mythology. But for some reason, when it comes to characters like Samson, when it comes to Jesus and other supernatural characters, because it's in the Bible, you're taught that these supernatural things did happen, these other supernatural things didn't happen. But why? Why is that the narrative? And that's the question that you can answer on your own. My hunch is that in our current times and current culture, that's the narrative that society has adapted. Doesn't matter if it's false or not. It makes you feel good, so you want to believe it. I want to believe it. We want to believe it because the Bible promises heaven. It's written by God, right? Not so fast. It's a construction of men, stories of men, myths and legends. People say, well, Samson was a real person. He was a judge in Israel. Well, they say Gilgamesh was a real king. And there were those who actually did believe in Hercules or any one of the Roman Caesars from Augustus before and after who were said to be sons of God. Even before your Jesus Christ walked the earth, it was said that Alexander the Great was a descendant of Zeus himself, and people believed it, but it did not make it true. Well, what's the point of all of these myths and legends? What's the point? Well, I believe, in my opinion and my theory, is that myths and legends tell stories to help mobilize people, to get them to be patriotic, to get some national pride going, because you're surrounded by other cultures who have their myths and legends that they strongly believe in, as well as their religion. And this helps the people maintain focus on their particular culture at the current time. I'll give you an example of such a thing. I'm old enough to remember the Christopher Reeves era of Superman in some of the comic books, and even throwback shows to, I forgot the man's name, but I think it was 1950s Superman that had a television show. I forgot the guy's name. But I remember oftentimes that Superman would be synonymous with national pride. It was the Christopher Reeve Superman that I remember, who had the American flag holding it upright. More than anything, Superman was an American icon, an American hero, to steal pride and to make the American spirit rich and abundant. Superman, a comic book character, faster than a bullet, stronger than a locomotive. And of course, that character has evolved somewhat to now some versions of Superman can hold a galaxy in his hands, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. A small galaxy, a miniature galaxy, actually. But these are the things that are told to us to give us a sense of pride and self-esteem. And Samson was no different. A construction, a myth, a legend, in order to instill national pride in the Israelite kingdom. Now, do you really believe there was such a man who received strength from his long hair and had supernatural strength? You may say, well, God gave it to him. Well, where did Hercules come from? Isn't he a descendant of the gods? So saying God did it is the same across the culture. Hercules, God did it. Gilgamesh, one of the gods, the god king, God did it. Why is your story unique, personal, and real, and not other stories that's like it? And by the way, the Epic of Gilgamesh was first, the legend and myth of Hercules was second, and Samson came third. You heard it. Samson is a later construction. Do your own research or your own conclusions. But Hercules was before Samson, and Gilgamesh was before them both. Now, how hard would it be to come up with your own story to instill national pride in your people, to come up with your own version of Gilgamesh, your own version of Samson? But we believe that Samson is real, Hercules is not. Samson is real, but not Gilgamesh. Samson is real, but not Superman. As far as we know, there has never been a supernatural human being, a superhuman that has ever lived, someone that can do something beyond human. Hercules had beyond human strength. Gilgamesh beyond human strength. Samson beyond human strength, slaying lions. This is beyond human capacity. And by the very fact that you believe a myth and legend to be true can only mean one thing. And that is that you're deep in the matrix. You're not using critical thinking. And you can be told anything. Just because it's a story in a book does not make it true. Now, what's the likelihood of a character like Samson and Hercules and Gilgamesh being real? Highly unlikely. How unlikely is it to have someone like Elijah and Elisha, the prophet in the Bible, who raised the dead, made axe heads float? Highly unlikely, improbable, and most likely impossible. Most likely impossible, but at least improbable and highly unlikely. JC, raising the dead, healing the sick. Extremely improbable and unlikely. Possibilities can abound. I don't want to go too far and say something is completely impossible. There may be a technology one day that would allow human beings to lift cars, fly, and all sorts of things. I mean, we can fly an airplane now. You can fly in a jetpack. Who knows what the next stage of either evolution would be or the next stage of technology, which is a form of evolution, may be. So I would say completely impossible. They're working on extending lifespan, and cryogenics seeks to raise people from the dead. But to our current knowledge and understanding, a supernatural being from heaven, from the gods or God, doing supernatural thing, there is no evidence for such a claim. No evidence that Hercules, or I should say Samson, was a supernatural human who were able to do physics-defying things, to bend the laws of physics. No evidence of that. In fact, there's not one shred of evidence of any of the supernatural claims in the Bible. From the parting of the Red Sea, Samson's strength, raising the dead, Elijah and Elisha, Jesus Christ's miracles in raising people from the dead, the apostles. There is absolutely no evidence whatsoever, not one shred, that these things indeed did happen. But for some reason, well, we already know the reason, we want to believe that the biblical stories based off of myths and legends, these supernatural stories, are somehow true. Now, I don't want to be condescending, so this is more for me than it is for you. But how juvenile is that to believe that Samson is real, and then you go on to tell your child that Superman is not? All because you believe in a God that did it. Not the God Zeus who created Hercules or brought bear a son named Hercules. That's not your culture. It's not what you're into. But for some reason, even though we know why, Hercules fake, Gilgamesh fake, Superman fake, Samson, him real. Oh my gosh, Dios míos. Logic, reason, and critical thinking is something that's missing today in the world. And it has been missing for a very long time. We set ourselves up to believe these myths and legends and take them as true, when there is literally no good reason to do so. Again, Hercules, fake. Gilgamesh, fake. Samson, him real. Saturday morning cartoons, huh? Just ancient ones written 2,000, 3,000 years ago. As a little child, believing what you see on television or reading a book and believing fiction is actually real life. Biblical agnostic here. Until the next one, I'm out.